Mom, I learned a new word today.
Oh no, what word did you learn?
Well, he probably learned it from his friends.
It's poop. That word may not be nice to say sometimes, but it's a natural part of the body, so that's okay that you learned that word.
Poop. That's funny.
Hey Mom, I learned a new word at school today about something we're learning about. Oh, what'd you learn about? Yeah, so the word is diversity. No! That word! No!
Your mother's right. That word is very dangerous and must be careful how to use it.
Hello, and welcome to another Unpopular Opinion. This time we're talking about why is diversity controversial for so many different people around the world? What it means to them, what they do about it. Why is there so much ununiformity about it? Well, the two things we need to understand is what is diversity and what gives diversity its value. Well, diversity itself is just information and knowledge. Just like many things in life, as we learn and experience things, it goes into our brains for us to reference later. It doesn't have any value yet, but it's there for us to retrieve when we need to use it. Now, how we give any information valuable, specifically diversity, is based on our past experiences that we've had and our sense of survival. There's also importance of understanding what's our ability to choose or to be in control of our own choices. And so we're going to talk about all of that today. So, knowledge. Let's just learn what diversity is. Kind of a basic definition and a little bit about what encompasses it. So, diversity is that each person has their own culture, race, gender identity, sexual orientation, sense of personal identities, multiple, that makes them who they feel they are. But the key about diversity isn't just the idea of diversity itself, but that a person's diversity, you must understand the term of intersectionality. Intersectionality is each human or individual that has multiple identities that they identify with, different little things that are about their personality that can either converge, be parallel of each other, based on what they act or do in the world. These things can affect their ability of access to power, opportunity, resources, and their ability to function. This is actually where diversity and things people identify lead into the value of how we act when it comes to the idea of diversity. Now, what are some of the dimensions or characteristics that are those intersectionality bits of diversity? Well, as we can see here, that can be culture, race, ethnicity, gender, social class, ability or disability status, sexual orientation, age, nationality or immigration status, spirituality or religion, or localities. So while there are multiple here, each of these actually could have their own subsets that go along with these characteristics or these dimensions. And while there can be a lot and it can get confusing, the point is the same, that this is the information part. This is understanding what it is, the definition, what's important about it, to understand it. So really the next step is for us to understand, how do we give this value? Why does it end up leading to controversy among different individuals with different beliefs and their own idea of how they act on the knowledge of diversity? We understand the idea of diversity. So how do we now give it value? Well, first, it reflects back on our past experiences. A lot of times when we are processing things in our brain and making decisions, it can happen super quick. We don't even think about it sometimes, it's just we do it. However, what we don't realize is a lot of our past experiences affect our ability to choose. And so sometimes when we think, oh, I have this belief because of this, you're referencing back to a past experience that has given you that sense of value that something has, whether it be diversity, whether it be a type of food you like, or any other subject that you have learned about that is knowledge inside your brain. Now, how do you initially get that information and knowledge and how you react? Well, that comes with stimulus and response. Whenever we are interacting with people, things, the environment, there's a stimulus. Like this example here, when you have this internal sense of hunger, I'm hungry, I need to eat food, I need it to survive, I want to taste it. It gives that eternal stimulus. So then your response is, I'm going to eat some food. You eat the food, you give value to that feeling of hunger to, I need to eat food to survive. Or I want to eat because it tastes good. So the external is the cold weather outside, which most of the time we cannot control. So our control and the value we put on the warmth we want to have is we have a response of putting on a coat. So now that we have the knowledge of diversity and understand that past experiences and how certain things stimulate us and we react on how we give value to the knowledge of diversity, the next step is understanding the survival part of our brain and how that affects a lot of our choices. There's a part of the brain called the amygdala, and there's a famous term when it comes to using the amygdala called amygdala hijack. Normally when we kind of have a low emotion, when we're calm, relaxed, we kind of have a sense of what's going on, we don't feel in danger, our higher cortex of our brain that does a lot more complicated decision making is active. We're able to use it. However, in sense of when the amygdala hijacks our brain, it disables a lot of what happens in the higher cortex. Some of those emotions that come are anger, fear, excitement, love, hate, disgust, frustration. It's our brain's way of saying, hey, we're in survival mode. Kind of the most typical example is the idea of fight, flight, or freeze. Say someone comes up to us with a knife. Our body's natural response is to flood endorphins and adrenaline in our body to get in protective mode, to fight, run, do something to protect our body. It says, hey, we can't make complicated decisions like, oh, what type of knife is it? Maybe I can dodge it or all that. It's focusing about we need to survive right now. So it gets rid of that processing, which is key for us to be able to give value to knowledge that we have. And so based on past experiences that happen to us, when certain information is learned and when certain people share their view or their value, that can affect us and can lead us, even though it might not be a big deal, still in that mode of the amygdala hijack or that survival mode that affects our ability to give the value that we wanted or just trying to survive. So knowing that sometimes past experiences can affect us to get into a survival mode where our body feels like we need to survive and we react certain ways, whether we want to or we feel like we're compelled to, we have to understand that even though that happens, we still have a choice to help recognize when that switch happens, when we're in that survival mode. Now, Stephen Covey, back in 1989, came up with the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One part of his book talks specifically about your circle of control and the power of choice you have. In this visual, you can notice in your circle, it's a lot about I, my, what I can control and recognizing that. Doesn't have to be fair, you might not have to like it, but recognizing I control the things that I can do. And then things that are out of our control are things that others or other things we can't control, like in the environment. Accepting that we can't control. And that can be the hardest part because not having a sense of control is a big part of when we get that amygdala hijack because we don't feel in control in that situation and our brain's like, we need to survive so we can get control back. So understanding that sometimes when we have situations where someone might have a different perspective on how they feel about diversity, such as a gender orientation, and we disagree with that based on a past experience or how we feel, it might change that perspective that we give each other, and then that affects the ability to communicate and understand one another because of that survival part of the brain from past knowledge. Now that we know this, we have the knowledge, we understand there's past experiences, but sometimes our brain is just going to get hijacked and be in that survival mode. So what do we need to do to understand that diversity itself isn't controversial? It's the value we put on it and how we respond to others. because as much as we all have our own opinions, we do need to understand other people are going to disagree with us. Other people are going to have different opinions. And there are ways to be able to still have value in separate sides of the spectrum of how people feel about diversity and still be able to build and have meaningful relationships, partnerships, friendships with people to be able to still do great and awesome things. So, to give some understanding of how this kind of works in real time, I'm going to share two examples in kind of a video skit format where I'm going to have a main person who's sharing some information in regarding to how they have value and a sense of diversity. And there's going to be two other people that are going to have an initial response, but then I'm going to break down what that individual's knowledge, past experiences, and sense of survival is in that moment so you can understand maybe why certain people react a certain way. So, let's start with the examples.
In this example, three close friends are having lunch, and one of the friends has something really important to share. So let's watch. So yeah, guys, I brought you here to lunch. We usually eat, lunch together, but today I had something kind of important I wanted to share. I guess I'll just come out and say it. I'm gay. I like men. I knew it. I'm so happy for you. Wait, what? So, a lot to unpack here. Let's start with friend number one, who says, I knew it, I'm so happy for you. Their knowledge about what is being talked about, which specifically is the LGBTQ community, is he's currently studying it in college about diversity, so he has kind of a common knowledge learning it right now. It's kind of present in his mind. They learned about it in his high school health class, so that was kind of a basis for it. So that's kind of the knowledge set that that person has specifically just about the LGBTQ community. Now, past experiences. They had a close friend in high school who was part of the LGBTQ community, so they had experience with someone who had that sense of diversity, that characteristic. And then they didn't really have any positive or negative feelings at home about LGBTQ, so it was kind of neutral. So their sense of survival, that while they have a sense of happiness and excitement, it doesn't really trigger that amygdala effect, so the front cortex is still there. They're still kind of focused more on what's happening in front of them and not just the survival instinct. So that's why their response was what it was. Now, if we go to the second friend who just said, wait, what? Kind of unknown of what's going on. Their knowledge would be they really only learned about it from a high school assembly. There was an assembly that talked about the LGBTQ community and being accepting, and that was like their main understanding of it. They did some of their own research in high school and college just to kind of learn about it, but not about accepting it or not accepting it. Their past experience is their social group that they were in high school and in middle school. There were no LGBTQ represented individuals. They didn't really interact with those of that community. They had a cousin who bullied them frequently when they would do family visits, and they later came out a few years ago, before this conversation with this other friend they had, as gay, and they still have a very volatile relationship. And their family was not necessarily favorable when talking about the LGBT community, so the family wasn't really harmful against the community, but they weren't really in favor of some of the stuff that they believe in. And so that was kind of the past experience. And so their sense of survival was their surprise, a little bit of anger and frustration, because they have some of that, specifically that pain that comes from someone that was from their family kind of bullied them. That link of just, and they didn't have a lot of nurturing around the idea, and more kind of negative undertones that caused him to have this shock. That's why he reacted that way. And so that's how he gave value to the diversity that the main person was sharing, because there's all this other stuff happening in the brain before they just respond. Similar to the first friend, they had the knowledge and they actually had some interaction positive interactions of those as part of that sense of diversity with the LGBTQ+, which led to their reaction. So, in example 2, we have a friend who's going to meet with 2 friends, but separate occasions, one-on-one, and they're going to be sharing some sad news about something going on in their life. Yeah, I don't know, it's been really hard. I don't know if I believe it anymore. Oh, don't say that. It is true. Yeah, I don't know, it's been really hard. I don't know if I believe it anymore. Wow. It seems like you've thought about that a lot. So, friend number 1, they said, don't say that, it is true. So, their experience comes from just what they've learned in their home about religion, learning about what their specific belief set is, learning in school about different beliefs. So they're very knowledgeable of there's a lot of different religions and beliefs out there. However, in their previous experiences in their life, they attended every church every Sunday. They went to church activities of the church they went to. Now, their parents divorced, and after the parents divorced, their mother no longer believed in what they believed, but the father did, and they mainly lived with the father. And then they also had friends that had left the church they followed and right now are struggling in their personal lives. And so the survival piece of this that's kicking in is not necessarily anger, but fear. Because as they've seen so much loss in their previous experiences, they think if this person is going down that same path as some of their friends or their mother, they just don't want to lose that friend. And so it's not necessarily a sense of, hey, you're wrong. It's a sense of fear wanting to protect them. Thinking about more of their own anxiety rather than the anxiety of the person sharing that part of the diversity that maybe they don't identify with that religion anymore. Now, with person 2, who said, wow, you've thought about this a lot, their knowledge is very similar. They learned about, church in their family. They kind of all grew up together in the same families, not same families, in the same community. So a lot of the knowledge is the same for the first one, accepting and knowing that there's other belief systems and everything. What's different is the personal experience. So the friend number 2 basically had someone who they cared about very much that ended up falling away. But they still kept that friendship with them, and they still have a very strong relationship to this day, able to respect each other, knowing like, I have this belief, you have this belief, and we still care about each other, and they see the value in that friendship even if they don't have that belief. And also their family was very supportive of helping others in the community regardless of religion. They did a lot of community work with the church they were with, but also outside the church, to just help and generally just try to be nice to other people. So there's that background too. So because of that, this person has seen some more positive examples of outside that kind of sense of diversity of that religion or that belief system, and being able to see that there are good things that can come even when people end up disagreeing with you, or someone you've really known for a long time goes a different path than you. And so that led to them being more empathetic, being able to kind of focus more on the person talking than their own anxiety, because there's no amygdala hijack happening here. And they just say, wow, you thought about this a lot. Validating that they're taking time to ponder and figure out what they need to identify with and provide a sense of safe support.
I hope these examples gave you an idea of how much actually goes through your mind with knowledge, past experiences, and potentially survival mode in split seconds when reacting, and how important it is for us to understand the choice and control we have and the practice we need to take to be able to understand what we value in diversity. So to summarize, diversity itself is information and knowledge. And an important thing to know about knowledge is knowledge becomes useful when we act upon it, when we give it value. So we shouldn't be mad, frustrated, upset about what diversity is itself. We should be frustrated, mad, trying to figure out how we're giving it value and how that affects us and those around us. So we talked about our past experiences and sense of survival really impact how we see diversity and the different facets and characteristics of it, and understanding our ability to choose or being in control. Now, what do we do next? Well, I can't force any of you to change your mind about anything. I'll be completely honest about that. However, as I'm giving you this knowledge, I hope that you can understand that just like others, even if we disagree on things, we all make mistakes. We all have gone through past experiences people might not understand. And for us to be able to get along in this crazy world, we need to show patience and kindness from both sides, from both viewpoints. Because there are a lot of things in this world that bring a lot of pain, sorrow, and hardship. And hopefully our goal is to not do that and to find ways where we can understand, while we have separate values of knowledge we have, in this case diversity, maybe we should take some time to understand their value while having our value still respected. I hope this video helped and you gaining that knowledge and hopefully acting on it in a way that could bring some solace to yourself or maybe better connection or friendships with others. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.